Hello everyone, today I will be retelling a film called Welcome Home. Enjoy watching everyone. You will definitely like this film. The plot of this film surprised me very much. Brian refuses, still haunted by the betrayal. The girl had too much to drink and cheated, realizing her mistake only after it had already ruined their relationship. That evening, Brian is unaware that someone is watching him through a hidden camera. The next morning, the girl prepares breakfast and goes for a run, during which she also recalls her infidelity. These thoughts interfere with her concentration, causing her to fall and injure her leg. As she slowly makes her way home, she notices a car and tries to stop it. The driver turns out to be Federico, an attentive Italian living in the neighboring house the couple had seen the day before. Federico helps the girl bandage her leg and drives her home, giving her a kiss on the cheek as he leaves. Cassie offers him coffee, but he initially refuses and leaves. A few minutes later he returns, asking to visit. She politely invites him in, grateful for his help in a difficult moment. Soon Brian notices the strange man in the house and treats him with distrust, doubting Cassie's decency. Federico tells the couple about a wonderful town a kilometer away and offers to take a walk, but Brian refuses, citing other plans. Left alone, Cassie takes a shower while Brian considers a marriage proposal. A little later, he decides to break the psychological barrier, but thoughts of infidelity interfere. Brian still sees the girl's betrayal before his eyes, spoiling their romantic mood. The couple does not realize that they are being watched by a psychopath through hidden cameras. As it turns out, this is Federico, who lives nearby. Sometime later, Federico gives Cassie and Brian a ride into town so they can unwind. Along the way, Cassie confides in her neighbor, talking about meeting Brian and the problems in their relationship. Upon arriving in town, Brian thanks Federico for his help but again becomes jealous. At some point, he reminds Cassie of the betrayal and admits that he knows about the calls from her secret admirer. The couple fights hard, and Cassie decides to go home. Near the ATM, Cassie accidentally meets Federico, who is aroused by the accidental contact. Meanwhile, Brian heads to a nearby bar for a drink and some relaxation. Federico also appears there and offers to befriend and chat. Cassie, bored at home alone, decides to drink, finding a bottle of expensive wine in the basement. Meanwhile, Brian becomes more open and shares with his Italian friend the reasons for his jealousy. He reveals his girlfriend's betrayal with a work colleague and admits that he cannot forgive Cassie for it. Coming to Italy is their last chance to fix the relationship, but the feeling of injustice continues to haunt him. Noticing the way Brian looks at two attractive Italian women, Federico suggests they get to know them better. Alessandra and Isabella show increased attention to the American guest and agree to drink together. Brian feels a pang of conscience, believing that all this is wrong, but he has drunk too much and is unable to refuse the company of the hot beauties. At one point, Federico suggests playing a familiar game for the couple, 2 truths and 1 lie. The Italian names 3 facts, including that he has the keys to the couple's mansion and can visit the lonely Cassie at any time. That night, Federico decides to follow through with his plan and sneaks into the house. Reaching the 2nd floor, he goes to Cassie's bedroom and touches her. Cassie, sensing this, assumes it's Brian, unaware of the psychopath. In the morning, Brian wakes up in a strange bed in a motel and realizes that he made a mistake. After losing his mobile phone, he returns home as soon as possible and does not mention his betrayal. While taking a shower, Brian notices traces of Italian women's lipstick on his body and hopes to hide it from Cassie. Remembering what Federico said about the keys and wanting to visit Cassie, Brian asks her if they had any guests, but she doesn't recall anyone. Eventually, the couple fights out of unfounded jealousy, and Brian decides to go for a walk. Cassie goes to the bathroom to shower and change, unaware that Federico is still spying on her. At the same time, Brian goes to the next house to talk to the Italian. Once inside, Brian realizes that this building is uninhabitable and that Federico has been deceiving them all along. He may not be who he said he is, and this realization scares Brian into rushing back home. At the same time, Federico visits Cassie and offers her a dinner of rabbit he caught on his last hunt. Back at his house, Brian understands Federico's intentions and tries to get the so-called neighbor out. The Italian is in no hurry to leave and blackmails the American, threatening to tell his girlfriend about his escapade with the 2 attractive women. Fearing exposure, Brian reluctantly agrees to remain silent and endures Federico's unwelcome presence. The evening conversation becomes increasingly tense, with some of Federico's words frightening not only Brian but also Cassie. Soon, Cassie goes to the kitchen to take the dirty dishes and Brian again tries to drive Federico away, threatening him with the police. Once the neighbor leaves, Cassie admits that Federico scares her a lot, and maybe Brian's fears were not unfounded. Seeking protection, Brian calls the owner of the house to report a suspicious man hanging around. Meanwhile, Federico returns to his hideout, continuing to watch the couple through security cameras. A close friend calls the psychopath, but he ignores the call. At one point, Brian decides to be honest with Cassie, admitting that he had been drinking at a bar and met 2 attractive women. He doesn't deny that he drank too much but insists he doesn't remember enjoying their company or cheating on her. Cassie forgives Brian and offers to build their relationship on trust. Soon after, Cassie goes to take a shower and asks Brian to wait for her in the bedroom. Brian goes down to the basement to get a bottle of wine, but the door suddenly closes, clearly not by accident. He starts screaming, but Cassie doesn't hear anything as Federico, who has snuck into the house, turns on loud music. Hearing a romantic melody, Cassie goes to the bedroom and finds a gift from Brian. Meanwhile, Brian discovers a small door hidden behind a rack of bottles and finds himself in an underground passage. After navigating a simple maze, he finds an exit leading to another part of the house and successfully escapes the trap. Hearing a commotion in the kitchen, Federico realizes that Brian has gotten out and is on the run. Cassie removes the blindfold and finds her boyfriend's phone with a few missed messages on it. After watching the videos, Cassie realizes that Brian cheated on her with two attractive Italian girls. At the same time, Brian is in the living room and sees on the screen what happened in the bedroom a couple of minutes ago. He assumes that Cassie cheated on him again, but this time not with a colleague but with Federico. The psychopath watches the couple suffering through the cameras, hoping they will break up due to another conflict. Everything goes exactly as planned as Cassie and Brian accuse each other of betrayal. At one point, Cassie throws Brian's phone, accidentally breaking a mirror and revealing a hidden camera on the wall. The couple realizes that Federico has been watching them all this time. Brian decides to call the police, but Federico hurriedly returns to the house to prevent this. Resolving the conflict peacefully is not possible, as the Italian is not ready to leave witnesses and does not want to go to jail. Federico lashes out at Brian with a hunting knife, causing a fight to break out. The enemy is much stronger and tries to strangle Brian, but Cassie saves him by grabbing a cane and hitting Federico on the head, sending him into a deep knockout. Under the stress, Cassie loses control and continues to beat Federico, eventually taking his life. It seems that all the horror is over, but a car pulls up to the house. Not wanting to go to jail, the couple quickly hides the traces of the crime and conceals Federico's corpse in the next room. Eduardo, the owner of the house, arrives in response to Brian's call. The couple claims that all the terrible things are over and they are now fine. Eduardo insists on looking around to ensure their safety. It soon becomes clear that Eduardo and Federico were accomplices, setting up cameras to spy on couples. Federico was a psychopath, and Eduardo used the recordings to make money through blackmail. Going to the shelter, Eduardo reviews the records and realizes that the guests killed Federico. Returning to Cassie, Eduardo covers the cell with his jacket, intending to kill the guests and leave no evidence. Cassie and Brian suspect that Eduardo is not as innocent as he seems and is somehow connected with Federico. While Cassie distracts Eduardo, Brian tries to attack him with a cane, but Eduardo turns around in time. Cassie takes advantage of the moment to stab Eduardo in the back, whereupon Brian takes the gun from him and fires a fatal shot to the head. Soon, the couple finds a room with monitors, allowing them to detect hidden cameras. Brian and Cassie destroy any traces of the case that might expose them, burning hard drives with incriminating information and burying the bodies in the garden. Afterward, they take a shower and promise each other that they will never tell anyone what happened. Having passed a difficult test, Cassie and Brian grow closer and can enjoy their time together again. However, they are unaware that a garden gnome was equipped with a camera with internet access, broadcasting their actions live. Millions of people watched but did not believe in the reality of what they saw.